All right, cool. So first off, I wanted to introduce myself for those. I think I know pretty much everybody. There were a couple people that RSVP'd who I did not know. My name is Dina Tierney. I'm with Pacific Point. We're a business and technology consulting company based in Honolulu, Hawaii. And we are also a Salesforce partner for the state of Hawaii. So if you're thinking about Salesforce or evaluating it or considering it, I'd love to have the opportunity to talk to you and share more information about it, because it's a very vast ecosystem with a lot of available features and tools. The other person I wanted to introduce you to real quick is Sonja, who flew all the way out from the Bay Area. Woo! And she's got her fancy lei and all kinds of island gear going. And so I'll make an announcement after we finish up the fireside chat with Rosa, but definitely we asked everyone to kind of fill out the little form for Bring Your Own Challenge, and really what that was intended to do was give everybody a chance to mix and mingle, talk about what they're facing, and Sonja is here as well as some members from our team, Pacific Point team, who are happy to just chat about those things and see if there's opportunities to provide value. So with that said, we'll jump into the fireside chat. And I wanted to introduce you to Rosa White from DRFortress, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate being invited by Dina for this. My name is Rosa White. I'm the CFO and one of the original founders of DRFortress. We're an internet data center and cloud services provider here based in Honolulu. We have our data center right by the airport. It's about a 28,000 square foot facility and growing. I see a lot of familiar faces here, so thank you all for your business. We appreciate being your partner and you trusting outsourcing your servers and IT infrastructure to us, so thank you.
Okay, cool, great, thanks. So we're going to dive into a few questions to just learn a little bit about DRFortress's background. They've had Salesforce for a number of years and kind of walk through their start and kind of where they're heading with the solution. So I'll start with that. So Rosa, how long have you had Salesforce? What did you start with? What kind of drove you to that business decision to move into Salesforce in the first place?
Quite honestly, we did not have Salesforce. We've had Salesforce now for 2.5 years, but originally it was basically my business partners and I going out and selling our data center services before we were even offering cloud services at the time. And it was kind of really funny. The story was that we had an Excel spreadsheet with all our opportunities, and if either Fred Rohde, he's the president of the company, or I went on vacation, or we got hit by a bus, we would always update that Excel spreadsheet. I mean, it was kind of that funny. And when we started hiring actually a sales team, we thought, wow, we really can't have this Excel spreadsheet going on, even if we have it on Google Docs or something. So that's when we invested in Salesforce, and that was about 2.5, almost 3 years ago. And it was myself. I used to work for KPMG Consulting, which is we installed software systems. So at the time, I thought, I know how to write business processes. I know how to install software. Salesforce is so easy to use. I'm just going to do this myself. And eventually, we created this three-headed monster with all of the great modulars that I put in. So I'll stop my story there because I'm sure you're going to ask me more questions about that. But it was very, very simplistic when we first started out.
Okay, cool. That's a great segue into some of your experiences. And I mean, we can start with some things that are positive, maybe. Like, what have you, now you've had it for like 2.5 or so years, what have you found to be some of the biggest benefits that you've gained? And then we can jump into some of the challenges that you experienced, like you started to talk about.
So definitely that spreadsheet has gone wayward. That's really good. And so now no one is really dependent on being hit by a bus or when we go on vacation not having to update the spreadsheet. So that's the positive thing. But really there is, as the company has grown, we actually reached out and have equity investors now. And they're investors in New York. They operate and or invest in major data centers across the world. And so even though we were their small Honolulu investment, they wanted to see similar reports, pipelines, sales forecast, deals that are closing in the next 90, 60 to 30 days. And so that has been one of the biggest benefits, is actually being able on a monthly and quarterly basis when we have our board meetings, being able to deliver the reports that they want. And they were used to Fred and I sending out this Excel spreadsheet to them. And now they see these sophisticated reports, and Millie and Stephanie, part of our sales team, actually update them on a regular basis. So we have visibility into our customers, our opportunities, and I can speak really intelligently to each of the investors. Whenever they pick up the phone and call, I could just log into Salesforce and let them know exactly what's going on.
That's super awesome. Cool. So to get you to that point, what were some of the challenges that you experienced? I listed a few of the examples that we were chatting, users, setup, functionality that was maybe challenging to set up based on your business without exposing yourself, but kind of talking about some of the functionality challenges or other challenges that you faced and how you overcame them.
Well, we have some unique way of sending out quotations to customers and billing, because a lot of our customers that we provide co-location services to use quite a bit of power. And so HECO charges us an electrical demand surcharge. And so we needed to put these types of surcharges into place with our pricing, though we didn't want to kind of, have our customers have this varying kind of bill on a month-to-month basis. So we tried to create these formulas to create this surcharge and, of course, our GT tax and that those things onto our quotes. We felt like when we were giving customers our pricing before in Excel, we could do anything we wanted, right? But in Salesforce, we had loaded products, but I didn't have the sophistication. It was me and a marketing assistant that were literally designing this, and we knew that Salesforce had the capability of doing whatever we needed, but just ourselves had, we were going to YouTube and looking at videos, and Dina was very nice not to laugh at me when I showed her some of the stuff that we had done, but we tried to get the quotes to be as transparent as possible to customers and show them the surcharges, show them the taxes. And all we were doing is just creating, like I said, these three-headed monsters by trying to get the data out on templates that just we couldn't figure out how to do.
That's awesome. What about I know we have other customers that ask questions about how did you deal with user adoption? How was that when you brought on Salesforce and you expanded and started to grow your team? How have you kind of approached that? I know you're maybe early, I don't know, but I just wanted to ask that question because I would imagine many people may be dealing with that.
Yeah. Well, again, I guess I had the foresight since I was with KPMG before on the consulting side that really you can throw in, it's not just Salesforce, you can throw in any new application out there, and if you don't have your users buying into the new accounting software, CRM software, if you don't have the users buying in and excited about the program, it's going to fail. You can spend millions of dollars implementing millions of dollars of software, but really it's about the processes and getting the buy-in and the adoption from the users. So we're lucky and fortunate that we have a smaller staff, and everyone was really excited about stepping away from the Excel spreadsheet, stepping away from the quotations that weren't really customer savvy or really satisfactory to our customers. So they were all really excited. So I actually, from very early on, incorporated all of my sales team, the operations team, even the president. I forced him to come some of the meetings because he's a user and has to log in. So we actually incorporated them into a lot of the process meetings. So we had processes documented. Again, Dina, thanks for not laughing at us, but we presented those to Pacific Point, and you actually improved those. She came in and actually said, are you sure the process really, you want it to work this way? And I'm like, well, it's been working this way for 7 years. I don't want to change it. And she's like, you might want to do something with this is best business practices. So that was fantastic, just having a second set of eyes. Just because we'd always been doing something the same way, we just didn't think, something could be more efficient. So Dina really helped with that. So one, if you don't have your processes documented, definitely get those documented, or at least an understanding, a high-level workflow of those. So before putting in a system, you actually know what process is going to work around it. Don't have your system try to demand your processes. There's something that's there. There's something that's going on with your workflow, and so you should get those documented, and then work with those to make sure your system works around them.
That's great. Pacific Point, as Rosa alluded to, helped the team redesign, so to speak, their Salesforce implementation. And I was wondering if, as you've been through this journey from the last 2 years and through that experience and on, have you felt like there's been an improvement in your employee and, like their experience and their efficiencies and even your customer experience as a result of that? And I was just curious if you could speak to any of that.
Yeah, absolutely. For one, our employees, we try to make the process as efficient as possible. I mean, we run a major data center with less than 20 employees and another 30 consultants, and so I always try to be as efficient as possible in everything we do. So that was the other thing with Salesforce. If my team doesn't have to type the same thing in twice, I don't want them to. One, because it wastes their time, and two, human error, right? There's going to be a typo, there's going to be something that gets messed up. So that was kind of key point, and that makes for happy employees if they're not wasting their time and re-entering everything. And the second thing is that we really have a lot of notes sections, and we have a lot of places where we can get the original contact information, background information about our contacts. A lot of customers are large enterprises, and there's lots of departments we're working with, and they have various roles. So we try to document all of the different people involved in the project, and Salesforce allows that. You enter it once, and it's there, and we can access it over and over again. So half the time when I'm talking with the investors, or Fred and I are going through our pipeline and trying to figure out where the next customer is going to go into the data center, we can go into Salesforce, look at the notes, and know exactly what's going on. I don't have to pick up the phone over and over again and call the various sales folks. So it has become a lot more efficient for us.
Okay, so how would you describe where DRFortress is now with Salesforce and where you sort of see yourself going in the future in terms of your business maturity and how Salesforce can be a part of that?
That's great. Now I'm going to bore the Bank of Hawaii folks. Sorry, guys. But we actually have we do everything in phases. Just because all our projects are just so large that if I can't break it down into different phases, then nothing would get done, nor would we get budget approval to get that done. My investors kind of don't like for me to ask for $4 million at a time, so I ask for $1 million each time that I go to them. So that's kind of we've adapted that for everything. And with Salesforce, I see two of the next phases. Well, we have a small phase going on right now, but the next two phases are, one of them is really working with our channel partners. So I think that Salesforce is going to really help us become more efficient working with our channel partners. We're trying to really help them grow their business at DRFortress. They provide tons of managed services. They and customers come to ask and say, "Oh, well, we're using we're hosting our equipment in your facility. Can you provide me cloud or storage or managed services or security?" Or even someone's asked me about Salesforce. And email services. So we want to be able to feed our channel partners these business opportunities. I don't want to be everything to everyone. I want to focus on our core business. And so being able to register the opportunities for our channel partners in Salesforce will really make that a lot more efficient. So that's one of the next phases that I have, is to really grow the channel partner community. And then the next phase, which is a little bit more challenging is right now we have very high security, as you can imagine. You have to go through like multiple steps to get even get access into our facility. And so we have a database that secures our customer access. And so one of the things I think slowly I'll do is be able to combine both our prospects and our customers within Salesforce with our security access database. So right now I maintain those customers, and I'm doing a quarterly, basically just dump into Salesforce, and all of customers that have become registered at DRFortress, I put them in, but I'd like to have that integrated somehow. So that would be a next phase.
Big plans. It's good stuff. So I've got one more question, and then what we can do is we can open it up to others who want to ask about three-headed monsters or whatever else that Rosa asked about, because we can throw the mic around, not a problem. So the last thing is just, what advice would you offer to somebody that's either maybe starting with Salesforce or in the middle of it, or because people are, I think our audience is really at different stages, right? Some people are evaluating it, thinking about it. Some people have just implemented it. Some people are at different stages. And what advice would you offer now that you've been through this experience?
So if you don't have a Salesforce expert on staff, not that I'm saying, yeah, definitely call Pacific Point, or definitely, I mean, Salesforce is wonderful. They're our marketing assistant, and then actually one of our salespeople, Stephanie, came in, and she actually volunteered to help me as well. We could go to YouTube and be able to figure out how to do something on Salesforce. Their training is wonderful. We upgraded from enterprise to professional, so we have the ability to pick up the phone anytime and ask for customer support, and they're responsive, they're quick. But in a way, as much as that was helpful, it actually was very helpful in us creating our three-headed monster, because we thought, wow, it would really be cool to be able to create a check mark for, if we meet someone as an initial meeting point. Do you remember that one? Fantastic idea. So we, created this little check mark area, because I know how to do that in Salesforce. And then we needed to report on it, because we wanted to track like how many initial meetings and follow-up meetings, so we could figure out how long it took us to close certain deals, and how many meetings and how many emails. So we were gathering all of this data, but we could not put it in a consolidated report, because I had used this field here and this field there, and the reports were just almost impossible to put together. So that's when we say we created a three-headed monster. We had all these great visions of what it could do, and it could actually do it for us, and we could track it, but then we couldn't report on it. So it's one of those things that as you get into it, yeah, you can start. The importing of data contacts is simple. Being able to set up fields is simple. Customizing it becomes simple. But then actually being able to take that data that you're capturing and be able to report on it, if it hasn't been set up properly, it becomes a big challenge. And that's where we were wasting time and money. And Stephanie was working on the weekends trying to get me these reports that I needed, that Dina and her team came in and were able to just clean up our three-headed monster. She stepped away 6 months later. I created another little baby two-headed monster, and she's fixing that right now. But it's just if you're going to plan for something, make sure, one, your processes are in place, and two, if you need data to report on it, kind of think that step through and make sure that you're understanding where those data points are sitting in the database, and being able to pull those efficiently into reports. Because when you're trying to consolidate data and trying to manipulate data, adding, doing forecasting, or figuring out a monthly average of something, it just becomes more and more of a challenge when you try to report on it, if you haven't planned for that ahead. So that's my biggest advice, is I think after it got cleaned up, it works amazingly simply now. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Anybody want to ask a question of Rosa? We made it quick just to make it kind of break the ice, really, because I know, like I said, everybody's in a different place. But questions for Rosa? You can.
I was asking about the reporting capability now that she has had Dina's assistance and seeing what that looks like now.
So we have created dashboards, which are wonderful. So Dina helped us with that. I wanted to be able to log in and just see what deals have closed in the month, because for my board, I need to report on revenue that's been closed and bookings, because we might book a deal, but by the time that we build out the cage or we build out special power, some customers need 3-phase power, or they need a dedicated DC plan. I mean, just things that are really custom to our customers. It takes us anywhere between 30 days to 90 days to build out those special custom deals. So I'm not recognizing revenue right when that deal closes, and nor are my salespeople being paid on it. No, but anyway, but to report on bookings versus revenue, it's for us that was a very important metric that our investors wanted to see, and they wanted to see certain types of they know that the types of deals that we close, and depending on your companies, you might have a very quick sales cycle or a longer sales cycle, and it might depend on different service or product that you're offering. And so we needed to show them the types of service revenue by services, and with that, as the deals are farther along, 90 to 120 days, they don't care about it too much. So I care about it, but my investors don't. So I needed reports that both catered to what I need to do strategically every day, and that what our investors want to see for long-term purposes. So the reports, especially the dashboards, have been really, really vital for us, so we can see it right away.
And I was going to say that before Rosa was exporting data out and figuring out how to produce all of those kinds of reports. I mean, it was all exported into this super complex multi-tab pivot table, complex spreadsheet. And now it's there, and it's something that she can have access to or customize as investors change their minds. Sorry to bring it up. Any other questions? Oh.
So I don't know too much about Salesforce, unfortunately. But the question is in regard to these strategic reports and moving away from those spreadsheets, were you using Salesforce for those dashboards, or is that something like a third party or some other technologies?
Don't even need the microphone. So yeah, the dashboards that we're using are directly out of Salesforce. I probably ingrained this in Dina's head. I wanted to stay vanilla as much as vanilla possible. That's kind of one of those things that I've learned from back in my consulting days, that anytime you customize it, you need to maintain that customized application or module. So I wanted to keep things as vanilla as possible. We're actually moving away. We're actually adding some modules and some applications, because the marketplace that Salesforce has to be able to pull from those apps it's very extensive. So this first phase, when we had Dina come in and help us, is I tried to stay vanilla, and all of those dashboards she was able to create based on our exact requirements, and she built the dashboards and are sitting there. And then Stephanie has actually been able to, and you should see those, are pretty cool. We've been able to build additional dashboards that we want. So they're straight out of Salesforce. So the one thing that we got limited to is the templates that were coming out of Salesforce for our sales quotations and our customer invoices and our sales orders. The templates are a little difficult to use, just the standard ones. And so that's what Dina's actually helping us out a little bit with Conga. Yeah. So it's actually, was that the free one? Is that that's the $5 or, I mean, it's, some of these applications are either free or nominal fees on a monthly basis. I mean, think this one is like $5. So it's, yay, $5 a month. So, and we don't need it for all our users. But it will allow us to be able to create standardized templates. It's almost like a letter format, a mail merge letter format. So we're able to take all of the data that's in, following our standard processes and be able to put custom service acceptance documents for our customers and special provisioning documents. So what I didn't want to do or be prepared for is we're tracking so many SKUs for our power installs and our cross connections. We probably have about, I want to say, close to 2,000 cross connections for our customers. That's every single internet service that we're providing, either a phone service line, or every single DSL, T1 internet service. Every single one of those is a cross connection from one customer to another or from a carrier to another. And we're talking about 2,000 of those at least and growing. And then in addition to that, all of the power circuits. So we keep that in a very secure install base. And like I said, eventually we'll get those databases tied in together. But right now what I needed to be able is to feed that database and my operations team information from Salesforce in a very concise manner so that they could get the data. And with Conga, we're able to do whatever we want. So it's really nice to be able to just go into the marketplace and just find something that we could easily use.
Definitely, if you're not familiar with the Salesforce AppExchange, there is so much within that ecosystem. And in Rosa's case, she's downloaded the Conga application, which can be used for what she's using it for her order templates and other templates. You can create sales PowerPoint presentations if you have something and you want to merge in data and quickly have your sales reps creating PowerPoint presentations for sales opportunity. I mean, it's a super flexible tool and it's available in that ecosystem within Salesforce. You had a question? Do you mind?
Yeah, no, of course. What about merging into QuickBooks and accounting? Do you guys do any of that?
I'll grab it. Save the seat. I'm a mom, I just take care of things. So we're not implementing Salesforce into our accounting at QuickBooks. We use Sage, and right now, and the reason for that is very specific. Again, this database of thousands and thousands of SQLs actually sit in, I know this sounds crazy, it's an application I actually created myself. And so it's very, very specific to providing data center services. I had originally implemented SAP for the company that I used to work with before we bought the facility. And so I had a choice of taking that application and being able to use it here in Honolulu. And I just designed some things just specific for our need. And so what I've done is I've actually tied that into Sage. And so it feeds for our install base directly into billing. I think that could be like a phase 4 or phase 5. But right now it's such a complex database and it's integral to our trouble ticketing system and supporting our customers, ties into our security access space. It would be very time consuming, but it's absolutely possible. It's just finding the time of the day to get more and more efficient.
Yes, you can. That's the short answer. I'm sure Sonja, where is she? She can speak to this. Let me let you do your thing. I wanted to give you some airtime.
Yeah, so accounting systems, right, is what you were asking about. One of the beauties of Salesforce is that I think we have more APIs than any other program out there. So really connecting with other applications is not a hard task to do. API is kind of like a bridge between two applications. That's the way that I understand it. I'm not a very technical person. I defer that to Dina. So like when you need two applications to talk to each other, like QuickBooks, for example, is a very popular one. So you're able to get information from one to the other. So you, one, avoid that human error, right? And having to input data twice, and then you're saving time as well. So QuickBooks is a very common one that we do. There are other accounting tools on the AppExchange that were built on our platform, so it connects with Salesforce directly. So yeah, so lots of options that you have there, be it what you already have in place, or if you're looking for something new.
About like mail campaigning, I guess that kind of ties in. That's like our biggest challenge right now.
Yeah, we love mail campaigns. So we actually built, it's a unique process that we actually built, and it was one of those workflows, my three-headed monsters. This was one of the three-headed monster twins that we created. We had created a workflow so that when a customer came in for a tour, or it would be for you, it would be like a sales call. What we did is we programmed it so that we would have an automatic task come out that 3 days later, our sales team would have an alert saying, hey, you need to do a follow-up. And then it would actually do two. It would alert the salesperson, and it would also go to our administrative assistant so they could send out, I don't know if you've heard of send out cards. And so it's just basically a thank you card, thank you for a tour, thank you for a meeting. And so we did a workflow so that she could send out a thank you card. So that workflow, great idea, Rosa. Implementation, not so much. You should stick to accounting. The workflow just got really complex, and it kind of started hanging up Salesforce. So I killed it, and but Dina was able to fix that. So you can actually set up fantastic mail-out campaigns, either just new ones where you're tagging what campaign that you're working on. If you're identifying a new campaign, you pick which contacts and leads you want to tie in with that campaign. And then after you've met, hey, you met me tonight at the event, you want to send out something, you can create that lead, be able to tag it that you've met me at this event or a generic event, and then be able to tag that history. So it's really useful. You might want to give them more of the workflow. Do you want to do the workflow?
Yeah, so very similar to what we were talking before as far as having applications on our AppExchange. MailChimp is one of those that integrate directly to Salesforce. So you're able to bring either be it lead lists or contact lists and email those all out and create your own little marketing campaign through there as well. And another beauty of Salesforce is we're very fond of this concept of crawl, walk, and run. So you can always start with something a little bit more simple, and that fits your needs at the moment, like MailChimp many times is as an initial point, and you grow from there, right? When you start really seeing the benefits that MailChimp brings to your business, you end up wanting more from that, and you end up going into marketing automation tools. And one of the things that Salesforce tries to do is to be able to help you contact your customer or be in touch with your customer from when you're finding them all the way to when you're keeping them. So we have this concept of find, win, and keep. And the beauty of having it all in one platform and all in one tool is that you have the 360-degree view of your customer. So you know exactly what was the campaign that they came from, what was their initial interest, what you talked about when you were selling something to them, all the way to did they have any problems when after that sale? Did you have any cases opened up because of that? So it really benefits for a salesperson, for example, to know what's going on from the beginning all the way to the end, so that you can service your customer better and be able to attend to their needs. Right? I think at the end of the day, that's what all businesses need to strive to do, is bring value to their customer. And when you have that 360-degree vision, that's what you're able to do. Does that answer the question? Yeah.
Longtime Salesforce user. Hi, Rosa. My name is Kay. I work at Hawaiian Airlines. And we've been using Salesforce for over 10 years, Micah? 12 years. 12 years. And so we've been using it for a while. But some of you probably heard in the news that we've grown quite a bit, really fast. And so our Salesforce today just does not work because we grew way too fast. And so we partnered with Pacific Point, and Dean has been very helpful. And we're going through changes right now. And all the points that you mentioned were exactly spot on. It's everything. I was just nodding my head every single time. So it's great to hear your story. And we're just starting our journey as well. But one of the things I wanted to ask you was, how did you get buy-in? What did you say? What did you do to convince your investors, your people, anyone who had to get involved? What did you do to convince them?
I'm not sure if you know Fred. You're one of the customers, but he loved his Excel spreadsheet. He was really good at that, updating that one. He did not want to let that thing go. Yeah, yeah. And so for me, it was a little easier because I just forced him to come to the meetings, and again, that important thing was that buy-in. So I mean, if you guys have been using Salesforce, you probably have some super users that are really comfortable and know how to use it. Very good. Yep. I love the super users, right? And then you have the folks that could barely, like, oh gosh, do I really have to log into this thing and I forgot my password because I haven't logged in ages, right? So you have the full spectrum, but really whatever implementation or changes you're going to be making, again, involving them in the process, especially if you're expecting them to use it and they're required to use it, make sure you get their buy-in, because if they've been using it for a long time, they probably know, the workarounds of how to make it, go easier or faster, and they know what they skip or why they skip those fields, or they're not, we never use this field, but maybe you're thinking that's a really important field, and so you have to get their buy-in of what the required fields. We had a lot of discussions on required fields, because there's the full spectrum on my team, like, someone, if there's a field and it's empty, they're going to fill it in. They'll spend 3 hours working on a client quote in order to fill in every single darn field. And then there's someone that, unless it has a little star and it's an asterisk and it's a required, they're going to just fill in that and nothing more. So, getting their buy-in in the process. So having those process meetings up front. If you guys are going through, especially if you've been working for so long, I'm not sure if you started just at least some workflow meetings, making sure that the process that you have been using still works, and things that don't work, then just fix that first, because having the people talk about it like, oh, I never do that step and this is why, then you'll say like, you got to do that step, or hey, maybe we don't need it. So just having that communication, the processes before if you've started making the changes, that's fine, but take a step back and work through those processes and have that open dialogue, because one, you'll get people engaged, and when they're engaged, they're excited about it, then they'll buy in, right? Because they get excited. Some people you'll just never buy in, and you'll just have to force. I mean, that's it's working with a team. There's just different types of personalities, but for most part, if people are excited, they feel like they're adding value and are contributing to it, they'll be more up to adopting it and using it. So that the processes is I think one of the key things to get people to buy into that. And then ultimately it's for our investors, it was almost a requirement, quite honestly. That's how I got the funding approved, is I told them that, hey, my vision is to be able to give you these data points, the 90, the 60, the 30-day, with what the average monthly recurring would be, and what, just that type of data. And they're like, wow, that would be great. And then, of course, again, the phased approach, it wasn't one big chunk at a time. It was, give me this budget approval for this year, and then this budget approval for this year. And it's kind of like you're saying, crawl, walk, run. That's what we're kind of doing. So we're walking now. I think eventually we'll be able to run and be able to integrate into Sage and be able to integrate into our install base and access base. But that will just be, we're a small team, so it will just take a little bit of time, but I think it will make the company a lot more efficient overall. And as we grow, hopefully we'll grow as big as you, but as we grow, I think that we'll have to be more efficient. And so at that point, it's not a matter of getting budget approval. It will just be one of those requirements that we're going to need. Did I answer your question? Yeah. Okay, great.
Similar question to their problem, but we're at week 1 of step 1 of phase 1, just beginning implementation, and our concern is adoption right off the bat. What were any strategies or suggestions with axing the Excel, Google Docs, all these third-party apps that we have that are 3, 4, 5-headed monsters into Salesforce?
So we had a soft cutoff So one of the things that I needed to do was, again, we had an existing Salesforce that our team was using. And so with the existing data, the first thing is we exported out the existing data, so we had it and we can save it. I'm really into backups. I have multiple backups. I'm obviously into disaster recovery, make sure that I have multiple copies of anything I have. But so we had a backup copy, and I needed to always have a reversion plan. So if this doesn't work, how do we revert back to what we had and nothing's lost? So, you know, it was kind of the basic 101 is make sure that you don't lose what you have and that you're able to access it or not. So Dina's team actually came up with a really good solution where it was the deprecated fields. You remember those? Yeah, fun times. So if you had an existing Salesforce modules there, I did not want to lose any of my historical. I was very vigilant about it. So what I did was, even when we went live, I went live with the deprecated fields. And what that means is any of the fields, even if they created three-headed monsters, I kept those in Salesforce, populated, but we identified them as deprecated so that we weren't going to be filling them out anymore or using them for any of our data points pulling from the reports. And so when we re-imported the data, and if you have multiple Excel spreadsheets and multiple that, just make sure that every single one of your fields that you've dumped into Excel or into an Access database or whatnot has a field that it could go back into. And if you're not comfortable with losing data like I wasn't, I just make them go back into the deprecated field so you're not losing anything. And then slowly, as the team adopts the new processes, the new reports, those deprecated fields, it's almost funny. I think I'm almost ready to just kind of lose that module completely in any of our screens. But every single GUI, GUI is the screen interface. So when you're in your contacts or your leads or whatever field you're in, you have the user interface, which is the GUI. I kept those deprecated fields actually appearing in our GUI so I could see those. And at this point now, we've been live in the new field with the new fields about 9 months, six months. It seems longer, but okay. So I'm now ready to kind of lose those. I feel comfortable that the data is sitting in the right fields. I'm accessing it all, and I can just move away from those fields. So if you have those three-headed monsters and you kind of love them and hate them, it's kind of a weird thing. Just if you want, deprecate them. That's what we did. And I know that made Dina's life harder, but it's how I was able to, sorry, I'm giving bad advice, maybe no. But that's how I was able to import the data, all of it, back into the system without losing one data point.
Can I add to that too as well? Yeah, so you've now touched upon a really good point, which is information and needs and your customers are always changing, right? So Salesforce will never be something static. It'll never be something that, okay, here, you're done. I think the whole point of it, right, with the 3 releases per year is to constantly be innovating and constantly be on top of your of the competitors, right, and on top of your market. So even Salesforce itself. So recently, there were several surveys that went out to all the users where several fields that we use have been taken away because exactly, we jumped them and we only filled out the little asterisk ones because those were the only ones that we needed. So we cleaned it all up for ourselves. So that was really great. So that's always a good point to keep in mind. And then also towards getting the adoption going, right? There's last Dreamforce. I don't know if you guys have heard of Dreamforce. Great event. A lot about what you can do with Salesforce. But there was this great point that it's cool to make Salesforce fun as well. And one thing that they did was they had all their happy hours or team events be posted on Salesforce, on Chatter. And they had groups about that. So when you use Salesforce for something fun, you also used it for what you actually had to do in your work, right? And a little tidbit about what we do at our company too is if it's not in Salesforce, it doesn't exist. So, if I ever go to complain to my manager, oh no, I had called that customer already, I just forgot to log it in. It's not in Salesforce, it didn't exist, I can't. So keeping that as your source of truth That's really important, and using it to coach your team and to grow your team. That's also really a really great way to get it onboarded. Yeah.
So yeah, once you close the sale, they're a client. A lot of times you have to go through a project management type of phase, but you'd hope that eventually they'd be a future client and kind of keep repeating. How does the project managing and the follow-ups and the post-sale kind of thing play into it successfully?
Yeah. Every single client is a new project. So Hawaiian Airlines was a fun one. But one of the things that we've adopted that I think is useful is we've integrated it into our email exchange. And so what that does, and it's really, really efficient. Before we implemented or integrated our email exchange, it was so complex. But if you're dialoguing on a project, whether it's before the deal has been won or after the deal's been won, if you're sending an email to a specific person and they're in your contact, what Salesforce is able to identify is this contact that you're sending an email is associated with 1 or 2 or 3 or however many opportunities that contact is tied in. And so when you send out an email or are ready to send out an email, what you do is, on our email exchange, we're able to just go ahead and click on the opportunity for which this email dialogue is happening. And so if it's the project and it's, Hawaiian Airlines and we're working on one of their cloud services or one of their colo services or whatever we're working on with the projects with Hawaiian, we know which contact we're dealing with or sending this email. We tag it, and automatically that email is saved as a history in Salesforce. So we don't have to go through our email and say, oh, who did we send this to, and who were we working with on this project, and what was the dialogue about. Instead of scanning your emails, you can actually go into Salesforce, and it's really a shortcut, basically, for your email communication. So every single one of your contacts, you're able to just tag, and all of those emails just get integrated into Salesforce, and you see all the history. So I think that has been really a historical, talk about like if it didn't exist, if those emails weren't tagged, you did not work on that deal, or you did not work on that project. So the emails are being tagged, and history is being saved in Salesforce, and it just makes it for real quick. We have so many projects always going on that we can't remember what we said and when we said or when we deliver, and just being able to go to Salesforce and look at those notes has become invaluable. I mean, I don't miss our Excel spreadsheet at all just because of the efficiencies that we have now in Salesforce. So I think you could use, if you're able, I'm not sure what email system you're using, and you can note if what they are. I mean, we're just on Exchange, but we were able to integrate it, and Dina's team was able to integrate it we had tried to do it on our own, and we almost had it, and then Dina fixed that for us as well.
Yeah, so the email point is a great one, right? The more information, the more data points you have in Salesforce, the more valuable that information is, right? The more you can bring out of it. And again, going back to the flexibility of what Salesforce is, if you've ever been on it, you'll see lots of little tabs on the top or on the side now with the new Lightning editions. And what's cool about those is that it's a little interface in each one of them. So one of them is an opportunity, another one is an account. And you can create those on your own as well, or with help as well. And there's applications on the AppExchange too, where instead of having just an opportunity, you have an opportunity that then turns into a project management one. So you have that whole control with Gantt charts and so forth, all within that one tool, so that when your employee is working every day, they're not having to switch around from different tools, which can be very cumbersome and time-consuming. They're all in one place. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. That was really cool. Thank you very much, Rosa, Sonja. Okay. So like I said earlier, we did the BYOC, so if you want to like chat about that with anybody, Sonja's an expert, and then there's a few people on our team. But thank you so much for coming out. Have more wine and food and whatever you want to do. Thanks, guys.